Many professions today have an organization where practitioners can find support and resources for their work. And for CX professionals, that's the Customer Experience Professionals Association.
They also have local networking groups, online communities, special programs, even conferences that CXPA hosts. So they do a lot of work. So it's a really impressive organization that's only been around since 2011.
A recap of the CXPA Insights Exchange on this episode of the CX Leader Podcast. The CX Leader Podcast with Steve Walker is produced by Walker, a business consulting firm that helps our clients unlock the potential of their customer experiences by placing the customer at the heart of all their business decisions. You can find out more at walkerinfo.com. Hello, everyone. I'm Chris Higgins, the producer of the CX Leader Podcast, filling in for Steve this week. Thanks for listening. On the CX Leader Podcast, we explore topics and themes to help leaders like you leverage all the benefits of customer experience and help your customers and prospects want to do more business with you. Today, we'd like to focus on the recent conference of our industry association, the CXPA, or Customer Experience Professionals Association. Each year in May, the CXPA hosts a conference they call the Insights Exchange, which brings CX leaders from a wide variety of companies and regions. Joining me in the studio for this episode are two of my colleagues here at Walker who attended the event, and they're going to share a few observations. Chris Woolard is a vice president in sales, and Pat Gibbons is a senior vice president and principal. Chris, Pat, welcome back to the CX Leader Podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's great to be here.
So there are a few listeners out there who probably don't know what the CXPA is. And Chris, could you tell us a little bit about our professional association?
Yeah, so CXPA was actually founded in 2011, which I actually didn't know that. Thought that was pretty interesting because we've been talking about customer experience for a couple of decades now. But then there was a need for a lot of people who were kind of getting involved with CX to have a area where they can share ideas, thoughts, and resources. So this was founded in 2011. Another interesting fun fact is that the term CX was actually started by this group. So I thought that was kind of interesting as well. We've talked CX a lot, but it was actually started by the CXPA. And so they started in 2011, and fast forward to today, where it's a global organization where they have this conference here in the States. They also have one in Europe. But they also have local networking groups, online communities, special programs, even conferences that CXPA hosts. So they do a lot of work to make sure people really understand the resources that are available, get people trained, get people certified. So it's a really impressive organization that's only been around since 2011. And we were really there for a couple of reasons. One, just to learn. There's a lot of great ideas. Also to share some of our recommendations and thoughts and best practices. And then finally, just to promote who we are and what we do.
Right. And the CXPA also has a certification process, too, for our profession as well.
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah, they do. And, it is a kind of a professional certification. I think it adds credibility to the field. And there are probably hundreds of people now that have become certified professionals. You take an exam, you have to, qualify for it. You have to have a certain level of experience. So, again, it's all part of, making the CX profession even more legitimate.
Now, Pat, you've attended a few of these conferences.
I have.
You're a veteran of them.
I think I've been to 5 or 6, all but like 2 of them. So yeah. I've been around.
So can you give us an idea of what happens at the Insight Exchange? How many people attend? How's it structured?
Sure. I think I'd begin this way. I think it starts with what they call it, the Insights Exchange. Now, I wasn't in the room when that term was created, but I'm guessing it went something like this. Let's have a conference. And somebody said, you know what, this is really about sharing amongst our members, member-to-member information. It needs to have a different name. And that's why Insights Exchange is really meaningful to this group. So the event itself, it's grown every year pretty much. And I think this year they had about 300 people in Salt Lake City for the event, and it's quite a range of people. You have some, many people we met there are saying, gosh, I'm brand new to CX, so I needed to come to this conference to learn more. And then at the same time, having been to a number of these, I saw a lot of people that I had seen at several of these, and many of them, of course, are speakers or they're leading sessions and so forth. There's people from all geographies. There's people from around the world that come to this as well. And there is a wide variety of types of events. So let me give you a breakdown, if that would help. Like many conferences, they have keynote sessions and breakout sessions. But unlike other conferences, there is a large number of events they call show and sessions. So these are table discussions with 10, 12 people, and people have 18 minutes, exactly, not 17, not 19, 18 minutes to share a case or a concept and have some discussion around it. And then they ring a bell and you move to another table. And there are more than 50 of those kinds of sessions. So all told, there is almost 100 sessions in the 2-day conference.
And Pat, you did one of those sessions, right?
I did. I facilitated one of the sessions. Mine was on customer listening architecture, all the right elements to how you listen to your customers. And my colleague, Sonia McAllister, led one on change management, specifically on the sprint process and how that has been applied. We do try to contribute, again, since we've been in this industry for a long time, we always look forward to the opportunity to share a few insights at the Insight Exchange.
And I just want to give a shout out to Pat that he had people 2 rows deep at his table as he was doing his session. So it was highly attended, highly sought after. So I think he did a really good job.
Yeah, it was fun. It was fun.
Well, speaking of content, I've got the list of various sessions here, and it looks like there was some interesting topics like how to be a CX rock star, which sprung out on my eyes because, we do the Luminary series on the podcast, and we like to joke that these are the rock stars of CX. And here's the CXPA trying to bring up more rock stars. I guess They know we need more guests on the podcast. But then help, I'm in a CX role and have no idea what I'm doing. That's another topic that comes up frequently on the show about how people are given the CX position, not being CX professionals, and have had to learn. And so many stories like that. And then the VOC fixer-upper, I think of that one show on
Chip and JoJo.
Yeah,
probably some shiplap going on.
Yeah, you got the shiplap of your CX program. But tell us a little bit more about some of the content.
Well, it's a wide variety. So I look down the list too, and you see artificial intelligence. We mentioned customer listening architecture, starting from scratch, technology optimization, running an agile CX workshop, creating moments that matter. These are just part of the wide variety. One of the themes that I felt emerged out of this was a little bit about not only how people engage, but storytelling in particular. So, you can imagine this is a pretty data-oriented crowd. They're collecting a lot of information. They're doing analysis. They're crunching numbers. But a lot of the theme was, how do you tell the story? One example was somebody from Airbnb told a story about how they get comments, of course, lots of comments from their people, but they also do video versions of this. So they showed a verbatim comment on the screen of a man who was very grateful that he could cancel and get a refund because he became ill. Okay, they showed that on the screen. Then they showed a video of him sharing that, same words, but he's sitting in a hospital bed hooked up to an IV. And you can imagine the emotion that creates and how much more impact that has on an organization and how it affects people's work, how they take action on things like that.
Yeah, definitely.
A topic I thought was interesting was engaging employees. I saw that one come up a couple times. And I thought that was interesting because, having done this for a while, CX first started out as just, like you were talking about, Chris, it was part of somebody's job. And now we're seeing it as maybe it's a full-time of somebody's job. And we've seen it evolve to now where there's even teams at companies that are all around CX. And so now it's going beyond the team and trying to engage the entire organization, which is kind of this evolution of it's a part-time job, it's somebody's job, it's a team, and now it's trying to get the entire organization all aligned and focused on CX.
I think it's a really good point because, you think of even the range of responsibilities, and it's reflected in these topics. Again, I think back, and it seemed like customer experience, even before it was called that, was more about doing surveys, collecting data, delivering reports.
Right, check a box.
Yeah. Then it became, well, what's all this good for? And it became about how do you create change in your organization? And now it's even extended to how do you design an experience that is beyond just getting better scores. It's creating a better experience, creating a competitive advantage. So all of this, and then wrap that all around, how do you create a return on your investment for your CX program?
So yeah, it sounds like there was a lot of really interesting topics there. And I know the CXPA will probably have all that posted on their website under their past events section. I think if you click on events and then there's a past events section, they'll have it. It wasn't there when I looked on it just now as of when we recorded the podcast, but I'm sure they'll have all that material up there soon.
Yeah, so. I think they're getting some well-deserved downtime after the event. But
those aren't easy.
Right.
Any other developments that CX leaders should know about?
I got to spend some time with the new CEO, Greg Malia, I think is how you say his last name. So I think it's kind of interesting that, as I mentioned, they started in 2011 and have had an interim CEO this entire time and have been able to do all of this with an interim CEO. So now that they have a full-time official CEO, I'm really excited for what their future would hold. And I spent some time talking with him. He was a great guy, had a lot of energy, a lot of excitement, a lot of passion about this. So I'm really excited to see what he's going to do with CXPA.
Yeah, I would add it's been really interesting to see their progression because, as you can imagine, it started from scratch. Originally, they were managed by an association management firm. Then they kind of started hiring their own employees and trying to kind of self-govern, self-manage themselves. This hire, I think, is pretty strategic. Now, on one hand, some may question the fact that he really doesn't have, quote, CX background. But what he does have is association management background. He's worked for associations before. And I think that is a particular type of business that not everybody understands. And I feel like CXPA is at the point of their maturity where that's what they need. So I also had a chance to spend some time, and I did not pass up the opportunity to say, hey, we want to have you on the podcast. Yeah, so he's committed. We'll give him a little time because he's just started his job. But we will have him on the CX Leader podcast.
That's great. That's great. All right. So I understand that we had a very interesting booth there at the CXPA. Chris, you were in charge of that booth, so you got to meet a lot of people at the event. Tell us a little bit about the booth.
Yeah, so Pat always does a good job of making our booth very interactive and fun. We don't want it where people just come up and say, so what's Walker do? And you just have that really boring, dry conversation, and they say, well, give me a pamphlet and I'll check out your website, and they walk away. We want to make it fun and educational. So what we did this year is it was all focused on combining X and O data, so data and operational data. And we had some customer journey stages laid out on the booth. So pre-sale, start, use, support, and repurchase. And then we had a glass jar that had a smiley face, a neutral face, and a frowny face at each of those stages. And we had the participants take a marble and drop into one of those glass jars for each stage how well they are combining that X and O data together. So it was a lot of fun, made a lot of noise, the marbles hitting in the glass and it's pinging and people looking over. And then once they did that exercise, we actually gave them an envelope with cash in it. It had anywhere from $1 to $100. And this year we actually gave away the $100, which was fun. Yeah. And people really got a lot out of it. People were stopping by throughout the day just to see because the marbles would grow and see how the results were coming out and things like that. But the results were kind of interesting. So we broke it out B2C and B2B. On the B2C side, what I saw was that they were kind of neutral across the board. Pretty much every stage, they're kind of saying, yeah, I'm okay, which honestly, I don't necessarily buy that. But that's what they're saying, so that's what we're going to go with. That's the story. On the B2B side, on the pre-sale was by far the worst, where they're putting together X and O data. To me, that's not entirely surprising. Some of the pre-sale data sometimes can be kind of hard in terms of what are you collecting and how you're using it, both on the X and O side. So that wasn't entirely surprising that came out as the lowest on the pre-sale. But they also were a little bit on the neutral side, although when they got to support, B2B was very positive. They felt like they were doing a good job of combining operational data around support, and that makes some sense, customer service calls, tickets, you can kind of track some of that, combine it with surveys. What I also thought was interesting was repurchase was more neutral, and even on B2C, it was actually on the negative side. Whereas you would think repurchase, you could track some of that as well, because are they or aren't they buying again? If so, for how much? But they were kind of saying they weren't doing quite a good enough job there in combining those two X and O data together.
Oh, that's great. And we've got photos of that I think we can put on our podcast page. And so if you want to see what our booth looked like, just go to walkerinfo.com/podcasts, and we'll have a couple of photos out there to show you what our booth looked like. All right. Well, like in every other episode, we are not going to walk away from this conversation without getting our take-home value. And I've got two of you, so we're going to get 2 tips out of this podcast episode. So, Chris, we'll start with you. What's one tip that you gleaned from the Insights Exchange that would be helpful for some of our listeners?
Yeah, I'm going to go back to the X and O data. Again, that's kind of where my head was at, because I spent like 10 hours a day at the booth talking X and O data. But a lot of these companies struggled with, one, even understanding what the operational data was, what that meant. So we have to give them examples oftentimes. And then oftentimes they were rated themselves, fairly poor or neutral on it. So I think there's a lot of traction that needs to be made in trying to put these two together to really understand the entire customer story. And I think when they can do that, it's going to provide a lot of value. But I think a lot of the problem is still the technology is kind of catching up to bring these two together, which is why I think the SAP Qualtrics acquisition was so key, because I think at one point now you have all this data potentially in the same spot where you can start to bring it together for the first time, and really, I think it's a lot of tremendous insight.
All right. Pat, what's your one tip?
Well, I think my one tip, just coming off of this event, is to check it out. I mean, if you are not familiar, if you are in CX and you are not familiar with the CXPA, you should at least check it out. If you are familiar with CXPA, or maybe you're a member of the CXPA already, make the most of your membership. So there are several ways. Obviously, you can attend one of these events. The one in Europe, I believe, is in March. This one's in May every year. And sometimes they do some other smaller events throughout the year. There's also the online community. I check it every day. I see a lot of good dialogue on that. And the final thing I would mention is, if you are in a city of any size, it is very, very likely that there is a group there of CX professionals that gets together. And again, you can find that on the website. Here in our hometown here, our group is, we're very involved. I help facilitate some of the meetings we have. We have a breakfast every month, and we always have just great dialogue and good interaction. And we've made good friends, so people can call each other when they need advice or when they're struggling with something. And, it just makes sense to have this kind of a resource to help you do your job and be effective.
Great tips. Chris Woolard is Vice President of Sales, and Pat Gibbons is Senior Vice President and Principal, both here at Walker. Chris, Pat, thanks for being on the podcast.
Thank you.
You bet. It's fun.
And if you want to talk more about anything you've heard on this episode, or about how Walker can help your business's customer experience, you can contact Steve Walker at steve.walker@walkerinformation.com, or call him here in the U.S. at +1 317 843 8890. Don't hesitate to reach out. I know he'd love to hear from you. Don't forget to subscribe to the CX Leader podcast. You can go to walkerinfo.com/podcast, and you'll find links to iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google Play, and on our YouTube channel as well. Simply go to walkerinfo.tv to listen. And if you haven't heard, Walker was named the Qualtrics 2019 CX Partner of the Year. You can learn more about that by going to walkerinfo.com/X4. Thank you for listening to the CX Leader podcast, which is a production of Walker. We're a business consulting firm that can help you make customer experience your biggest competitive advantage. Find out more at walkerinfo.com, and we'll see you next time.